They're from New York, but they live here, been in Sonoma County for quite a while. And Neil was a dentist, pursued a dental career for many years. He's been heavily involved in photography. And actually, I was in my former Rotary Club. This is where I met Neil and Susan. They're full-time professional photographers, and they just got back last year from Cuba, 15 months ago, rather. And they're, sorry, I had a brush running around. Cuba is hot. One of the newest turn events is the warming of the relationship between the U.S. and Cuba. After 50 years of the imposed embargo, life is about to change between these two countries. Last May, so it was a year ago, the photographers Susan and Neil Silverman were lucky enough to return to visit Cuba and travel from the island to Havana, travel the island from Havana to Santiago and many places in between while leading a small photo tour group. They have a great photo slide presentation that's captured the charm and sadness of this eclectic island, and we'll present it right now. So please welcome Susan and Neil.
Okay, thank you very much. We're very happy to be here to share some of our experience with you, and I'll give you this too. We were there a year ago. We led a small group, and we had actually visited Cuba previously, probably 15 years prior. Kind of went in through the back door without the paperwork. We went into Mexico. This time we took people, so it was an official visit. We had all the right paperwork. And it was actually, let me get over and move over that. It was a wonderful trip, and ironically, we came home, and the, I think my computer would sit there, sorry. We came home, and of course, all this warming trend with Obama and the change of the venue has really made it all more valuable to us that we were there when we were. Sorry, I got to work with my computer here, went to sleep.
I guess I didn't have an effect on the computer.
Okay, there we go. Sorry. I love technology. So we went with a small group of people. It was really fascinating. We went from one side of the island to the other. And what we'd like to show you now, and hopefully have time for questions at the end if you have any, but we'd like to see, we see it through the eyes of our camera. We saw Cuba, this beautiful, beautiful place, and the people were, the experience was wonderful. But basically this is a show that's going to take you and hopefully give you the sense of what we found and the flavor of the island, the people, the experiences that we had, and then we can answer some questions at the end.
How many of you have been to Cuba already? Raise your hand really high. Wow.
Dos gardenias para ti, con ella quiero decir, te quiero, te adoro, mi vida, ponle toda tu atención, que será tu corazón y el mío. Dos gardenias para ti, que tendrán todo el calor de un beso, de esos besos que te di y que jamás te encontrarán en otro ser. A tu lado vivirán y se hablarán como cuando estás conmigo, y hasta creerán que te dirán te quiero, pero si un atardecer las lágrimas de mi amor se mueren, es porque han adivinado que tu amor me ha traicionado, porque yo lo que
a little tour of the island.
So it was really, it was an amazing place for us, and we didn't see that much of a change between that. The changes that we saw when we were there earlier, people were a lot more, we felt a lot more open now, a lot more friendly, willing to talk to us, wanting to talk to us. Anybody we met would say, it was funny because we had the same guy, we had one local guy that stayed with us the whole trip. We were there for 3 weeks. We went from one end of the island to the other. We had the same young man with us, and he was very good, and he was really interesting, and his main focus in life was to get a visa to get out of Cuba to get to Ireland to marry his girlfriend. And everybody that we met basically said, "Where are you from?" "I have an uncle in Philadelphia. I have a cousin in Miami." Everybody we met wanted to get to the States. And I found that just really interesting. But he also mentioned about the embargo, and he said, you know, the embargo is 50 years old. He said most of us don't even know what life was like before. It's like no big deal to them. You know, they don't even realize the impact that it has. What I found interesting is people said, oh, take soaps or lotions, things like that. And there was a little bit of when you come into a town, people would say, you know, have their hand out hoping that as a tourist we give them something. But what they really wanted, and I found it really sad, was pencils or pens. Anybody would say, if you have a pencil or a pen I can have. We had experienced 2 of them. We were in a hotel, and it was a very nice hotel. You don't go to Cuba for the food, or you don't go to Cuba for the accommodations. I mean, they were fine, and some of them were really charming and lovely, but as you can see, most of the buildings are really in disrepair. We were in one hotel, it was a very nice one, and Neil was talking to the woman, and when he finished, he walked out the door, and suddenly she came running after him, and he had taken her pen from the front desk just by mistake. You know how whenever you sign something, you maybe sometimes put the pen in your pocket without realizing it? It was her pen. That was her only pen. It was as if he'd walked away with the computer. Happened another time, too. He was interacting with somebody at a large, I don't remember what it was, a hotel or restaurant, and she put her pen under paper, and she had this magic moment of panic because she'd lost her pen. So little things like that were very, you know, were very poignant to us. The things that we take so for granted was really interesting. I love the fact that every time we saw everybody going to school, it looked like kids up to even age 10, 11, or 12, they were always holding their parents' hand. It was like the parents walked into school every day, and they were always holding hands. They weren't just walking with them. There was a lot of that. So
it's the most bare bones places for the schools and the classrooms and all. You don't have a lot of the things that we have, but they've got a 99.8 or something like that literacy rate, one of the highest in the world. Free education, free books, all the way through, free medical.
the physicians, a surgeon earns...
So they can get about, what is it, $75 would be the top a month for a neurosurgeon. And somebody that we know, actually from Sebastopol area, that's married to a Cuban gal, she works for a broadcasting company with a pretty significant job, and I think she makes like $25 or $30 a month. So everybody wants to get that euro dollar. It used to be they wanted the US dollar. But they get that by being a waiter or a taxi driver, that type of thing. So your waiters are probably electronic engineers, a lot of people with degrees. Your taxi driver might be a neurosurgeon from Russia. It's a real different way that they live.
We had the experience of, what was I just going to say, I was going to talk about...
And the medical people, they send something like 40,000 or 44,000, I read, medical personnel to Venezuela, and they get oil for that. So they're sending these people out for a short time, and then the money goes to Cuba.
They're contracted. So Cuba has, the government has a contract with these, particularly Venezuela, where they send their medical people out. They're very proud of the education, they're proud of the medical, the doctors and the knowledge they have. But our guy said, but we don't have the medicines. We don't have the medicines in the pharmacies. And we were in several pharmacies, and you wouldn't even realize they were a pharmacy.
Most of the shelves were empty. And they still have the ration system, so they go in with a ration card to a place that would be down in the corner, and they'll get a little bit of flour, a little bit of corn, maybe a cigar. It's so many eggs a month, what is it, 6 eggs a month or something per person, something like that. And they're still walking in, nothing computerized, they just walk in with this card and get it all checked.
And you know, we went into a couple of these, they call them the government stores, where they hand out the rations. We went in, and they were so sweet, they like handed us a loaf of bread. You know, they're very warm people.
Well, actually, I tried to buy some pastry, and you have to have their dollars, so there's different types of currency. But the one for the local people, which is very tiny bit, it'd be like pennies for us, the tourists can't really get those. So that was the only thing they would accept. They couldn't take any of the money that I had with me, or euros, or anything like that. They just gave it to us.
And we went to Baracoa, which is a town that's known for its chocolate. And everybody in Cuba said, oh, you're going to Baracoa, it's wonderful, the chocolate's wonderful. And of course, Havana is the big draw for tourists, and Canadians go there a lot. It's very heavily populated by the Canadians during the winter. They're big spenders in Cuba. So, but you don't see any of that chocolate in Havana. And I was talking to our guide, and I said, so why don't they bring down this wonderful chocolate to Havana that everybody's talking about? Why doesn't somebody bring it down there and sell it? You have all the tourists there. And he looked at me and said, well, that would be free enterprise. So there they are with this chocolate everybody talks about. They don't even bring it down to one of their own towns.
But if they tried to bring it down, they would be stopped and they could be put in prison for trying to transport this stuff.
He told us about 2 women who made some kind of cheese that was famous throughout the island, and they had it in either a car or on a bus. They were taking it to another city to try and sell it, and the police pulled them over and arrested them. There was also a man who made wonderful breads. He said he was known throughout Havana. His breads were wonderful, but he couldn't get enough flour to make for the demand. So he went. He would get the allocation from the government store, and then he started getting from other places. Well, the government figured it out and came in and fined him so heavily that he just shut down and didn't do it anymore. So it's a real interesting, I don't know, it left me puzzled the whole time I was there and the whole time I left. These people are so proud of their revolutionary spirit and everything they did, and yet they're so complacent with everything. So I found that just, you know, it was such an economy for me to understand it, because every museum they took us into, of course, was about Castro and about what he did. And here's a cigarette butt of the cigarette he smoked when he was on this certain, you know, a certain display. I mean, there's just, everything is about Castro and this revolution, but yet these people just kind of give into it and live with it. So it's very interesting, it really is.
I'm going on an artist tour in March next year. We'll be going there to paint watercolors and whatnot. And so I'm curious about pens and pencils, like if I can take extras of those and pass them out.
I would tell you to take pens and pencils, even more than the soaps, because I think majority of people kind of come in with these lotions and soaps, and that's fine, but really, that's what I found. I thought, boy, if I had this to next time.
They don't have lead.
Yeah, they don't manufacture anything there, so that's what I would definitely take.
Going through customs is...
We had no problem at all. Now, it's interesting, this one man that was on it with our group, he's a very tall, big guy. Had a lot of camera equipment. He didn't come in actually with us. He met us up a few days later. And they went through everything he brought in and kind of gave him a bad time. But he has a little bit of an attitude, too. So I think he probably provoked it on his own. But they didn't take anything from him. It's interesting, when you get to the airport, it's like where the tourists come in. Then there's the other half of the airport where the Cubanos are coming back to see their families, and I mean, it's a very emotional half. The other half of the airport, keep your eyes on them. Some of them are reuniting after a long time. And those people are bringing in huge amounts of things. And I think the government lets them come in okay, except there was a story about this one man who was bringing in like 25 TVs, but obviously he was going to try and sell them. And there's a lot of black marketing that goes on. have, and he said that about the flower and everything. People have, they have intranet there, so they can communicate within the island, but not out of the island. We were able to get online. We had to buy a card from a hotel, and but every time we went to another hotel that would let us get online, it wasn't working or something was wrong. I mean, it's just, you know, this is all going to change. Who knows by the time you're there what it'll be like.
Well, a lot of things will change, but the infrastructure is still going to be tricky. So even if you're at a nice hotel, there might be no hot water for a morning or something like that. Just a lot of that type of thing goes on.
We
We
were
can do plein air type of painting there?
Sorry?
Plein air type of painting?
Yes, and just sketching different things and watercolors.
Well, it's great. We had a sketcher with us,
Uh,
and he just did a show in Napa. And it was so amazing. In fact, I think there might be a show this coming week of him and his wife. You might just want to see what he did.
Oh, okay. Also, I saw in the paper that Airbnb is now getting into Cuba.
Everybody's been trying to get into Cuba. I heard that Netflix is trying to get into Cuba. Really interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think the future holds for Cuba? I know it's a huge question, but
It is.
is there talk on the streets about that, or talk among people that go there, or what's the buzz?
You know the buzz we heard about was so interesting. They kept, everywhere we looked, well, there's Che, pictures of Che, not of Castro though, Che, and he's the big icon all over their everything. And then these 5 men, and finally I said, well, who are these 5 men? And they were the 5 prisoners. Do you remember when Obama kind of cracked the ice and he sent these 5 prisoners that personally I didn't even know about back to Cuba, released them. And this was their crying point about these 5 men that were being held over here that were, and I think they've been here maybe 10 or 15 years.
There's
really don't know
billboards
the backstory.
everywhere, all through the country with these 5 guys' pictures on.
But they don't, yeah,
Across the entire country.
it was really interesting. And as far as what the future is, you know, I don't know that these people, it's funny, I never had a sense that people really think that far into the future. We did interact with some people. There was one photographer who was very well known, who travels back and forth from New York to Cuba. And he just kind of said, well, I work both systems, you know, so I don't know if anybody's got a really big picture or a big plan.
He's like Castro's personal photographer.
Can you say anything about the food system? I heard that there was a lot of like close into the city's community gardens because, you know, the lack of petroleum products make it hard to get, you know, transport food and stuff. Did you guys see any of the community gardens? Is that something that is notable?
Yeah, we saw some great ecological gardens, especially up in the Vanellis area. Yeah, there's a lot of that. Everything's community. We had some kids playing soccer in the street, and I really wanted to photograph them. And so we did for a while, got to know them a little bit, and then they took us over to their house and met their family. Well, their house was, this is an old Havana. You're going down one of these little cobblestone streets, and then you see a little entry into whatever. And actually, every entry you saw had somebody either sitting, watching, looking. I mean, anytime you walk by any opening to any building, there's just somebody there. I tried to show that a little bit in here, where you were kind of peeking in and saw a leg of somebody sitting there or whatever. But in a place about the size of from here to the wall, and like this, there might be 8 families living there with cardboard partitions and little plywood boards to make it so you can go up to another level. So you cannot believe where these kids lived. I mean, in the space of this building had to be 20 families.
And then ironically, we were with a taxi driver, and he took us over to another part of the city, and we saw some of the most beautiful homes worthy of Marin County. And I said, oh, who lives here? And he said, oh, the military.
I think your pictures are remarkable. Thank you for sharing them. And I'd like to know, did you have any experience with the music? I'd like to hear about that.
Okay, well, I'm a musician,
Oh,
and I love all of Latin music. And so we led a tour. small tour. And every night the people were tired and went to bed early. Well, every night I went out and heard music. And so, yes, the music's just incredible. And you probably will never, if you're on any kind of a tour with any number of people at all, you'll probably never have one meal without music, without live music
Live.
right at your table.
I mean, even in the morning, this hotel where it was a quick buffet, they would have musicians, live musicians, everywhere, every court, you know, in the center of a town, anywhere. This one gal and I went for lunch off hours just to grab something, this tiny little restaurant, it was called the Two Guitars. We got in there, we're eating, and all of a sudden the door opens, this man comes in with his guitar and sits down and plays right there. So it's really amazing, and it goes all night long. So if you're a light sleeper, don't have your room on the courtyard.
They have a fortune in classic cars there.
Oh, the cars are beautiful. And I don't know if you got the gist of it, but for every 2 cars you see, there's always, under one of them, there's a pair of lights coming out trying to fix it, or in the hood. The cars are beautiful, and they're very proud of them. They love them. They say they're the original hybrid, because it might be a Ford, but it's got some other kind of an engine, another kind of a transmission, and they make them all work.
Do they have cell phones?
They have cell phones. Everybody's got a cell phone.
Everybody's got a cell phone.
Do you have any sense of being under surveillance at all?
The first time we were there, which is a bunch of years ago, there was always somebody in every neighborhood who's watching a little bit. So you couldn't just talk openly walking down the street with somebody. If somebody was taking you around to show you around, he felt he was going to be watched. Okay? But there's also a doctor in that neighborhood, for that neighborhood. But this time we didn't feel anything like that. But somebody asked about food and about the cars and about the music. Well, it's changing so rapidly. So if you're in Havana, for instance, and you're going to go out and hear music, if it's any kind of a known group of any kind, like Buena Vista Social Club kind of place, you're going to pay a heavy tag. This is before it's opened up as much as it's done. You'll rarely be able to get in because some bus tour is going to have the whole place sold out. And so you almost have to find the little local places that are happening. Okay, it's changing that big. And the bus tours were really starting as we got there this time. We were a very small, intimate tour. When we're going down the road, we saw those 5 pigs all being twisted that you saw in the picture. We could stop and we could interact with the people, and they invited us to their big farmers' party and everything that was going on. But you can't do that on regular tours. And so you wind up at a place, there were places out in the countryside as you're going from one town to another with maybe some buffet and 18 buses parked outside and everybody in a line for an hour because it's hitting so fast. And this was before Obama's announcement. This was, you know, just a few months before. Yeah.
So I know there's no more time for questions, but you don't have to answer this, but are the people happy?
That's a good question.
You
Who
know,
really knows what's happiness? But they are. I mean, they seem very happy. We never really saw people that were pulling us aside, or we never got political. But they're, I mean, appearance.
If you want to be pulled aside, just go to Railroad Square in Santa Rosa and walk the street. You don't get that in Cuba. Nobody's bothered and nobody's.
I think the people are.
Those smiles you saw, those are so genuine. And those are not taken from a post, behind a post somewhere with a big lens. We're just interacting with the people.
And they're very proud. They're very proud of their culture. They're proud of what they have and what they've done with what they have too.
If you would stay after for some more questions.
Sure, we'd love to.
Yeah, no problem.
Some people have to get to work, so we
Understand.
have to move on. I've got my own.
Oh, good.
But I have a task for you, if you would.
Oh, sure.
We have a door prize drawing.
Good.
And if I could get you to select one of these tickets, just through the next 4 digits.
2182.
Oh!
No?
Okay.
Go down.
Try that.
2215. Wonderful.
Thank you very much. That's a
Thank you.
fascinating
Thank
show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, we enjoyed it. Nice job.
Okay, Nancy,
Yes, sir.
let's see, we have some cards here. All right, so see if you can pick an ace out of there. Is it? It is! All of it's right.
For the grandbaby. Absolutely. Cool.
Bruce Campbell?
I owe you, Nancy.
Yeah, you do.
The door prize. And Wayne Griffin. Joe.
I do?
Do you?
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
Let me think of something.
I always have backup if you can.
Come on now.
Raza?
Let me think of it.
All right, here we go.
Okay.
Next week.
She's gone to her car
Yeah,
to
pass.
the mechanic to get the car fixed up, and the tires were kind of low. And the mechanic said, well, I'll have some fun with her. So he said, if you would just blow in the tailpipe, it'll inflate the tires. So she went home and she was trying to make this work, and her roommate comes out. He says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm trying to inflate the tires. She was also born. She says, dummy, you have to roll the windows up.